Hello, NAAIA community. Get ready to relive insightful discussions, gain fresh perspectives, and be inspired by the wealth of knowledge our community has to offer. Let's dive into another episode.
Hello, everyone, and happy Black History Month. It is still February until Thursday, so we certainly can say that. As I am fond of saying every year, Black history is American history is world history, and the history of the world belongs to all of us. We are proud every month of the year to salute the accomplishments of Blacks and African Americans in our industry who are making history in real time. Significant and barrier-breaking promotions like Sean Ramallo, who was just named the first Black executive vice president in Travelers history, or Mike James from NFP, who is the 2024 honoree of the Chinese American Insurance Association, National Board member Dwight Geddes, whose business insurance article on an industry in crisis, challenges and opportunities is making its way around the net, or National Board Secretary Rebecca Ratliff, who next month will receive the Global Women of Excellence Congressional Award at the U.S. Capitol. Our members and leaders across NAAIA are incredible leaders in our industry, in their community, and our society at large. NAAIA is proud to join with over 1,000 organizations across the globe in support of the Insurance Careers Movement, a grassroots effort to promote insurance careers, to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion within our industry, and an effort to retain emerging leaders and continue to invite them to stay in the insurance industry. One of the key strategies of NAAIA, and in particular our Vision 2030 strategic plan, is to introduce insurance and risk management as a career of choice for Blacks and African Americans and professionals of color. Our panelists today are great examples of how to have a successful career in the insurance industry. And we're looking forward to today's conversation as a way to understand the real challenges that exist in this industry in terms of navigating your career, making career planning moves for advancements and promotions, taking on stretch assignments, and also how to do so successfully. And the gentlemen who will be participating in today's conversation have all done that. And we're excited for them to share their tips and tricks and their career stories with us today. Elzia Sekou, who is the lead application engineer at LTCI Partners, will moderate our conversation and will introduce his fellow panelists. Elzia, welcome to our Insurance Careers Month webinar, and take it away, sir.
Thank you so much, Omari. It's an honor to be here and to introduce at the very beginning my illustrious colleagues here. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining us on this how to make this move your next move, your best move as you move forward in your career. And we have with us today, we have Malcolm Inge and Stan Bernard, who are going to introduce themselves, if you will, because they have a very illustrious career. I'll let them introduce themselves and give you a brief background on themselves, and then we'll jump right in. So I'll start with Malcolm, since you're right on my left side here, and then we'll move over to Stan.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Malcolm Inge. I am currently a property claims manager for IAT Insurance. Been in this industry, it will be year 25 in May. I started really young. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But I just looking for this opportunity today to talk about my path, how I got where I am, and hopefully make it easier for the next person that's coming on.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks,
Excellent.
Elzia.
Stan?
No, appreciate that. I'm Stan Bernard. I'm happy to be here. I actually lead the financial institutions and professional services industry practice for Zurich U.S. Middle Market. I've been in the industry for over 20 years as well. Started very early, but I started actually in the banking space and made a transition to the insurance space, and looking forward to sharing a little bit more about that transition as well.
Excellent. So let's start, and I'll switch back and forth. Let's start with you, Stan, in terms of just tell us a little bit about. You said there that you started in banking and you moved over to insurance. Tell us a little bit about how that transition and why you made the switch, and why you're still in insurance today.
Yeah, no, sure. So I grew up in northern New Jersey, about 30 minutes outside of New York, and for me, growing up and being so close to financial services, being close to New York City, that was always an aspiration of mine, right? So I really wanted to go into the banking space. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity out of Rutgers from undergrad, working for a mega bank and a money center bank that had a lot of opportunities. I went in as a commercial credit analyst, did that for a few years, got a real good view of debt, capital markets, and how that impacts our overall economy. Unfortunately, though, there was a small crisis called the financial crisis in 2007 and 2008 that had me rethink, job stability, because there was a lot of downsizing happening around me. Certainly had me thinking about flexibility when it comes to work and growth opportunities, right? So that was the first moment that I really sort of opened up to entertaining other careers. And I had a family friend who really introduced me sort of to the possibilities of a career in insurance. That friend worked in commercial insurance and happened to also work in the financial institution space within insurance. And so that gave me, sort of a peek into the industry. So I think, one of the key takeaways there is certainly leverage your networks. And I've, pretty much haven't looked back since then, right? And it's been a rewarding career and a lot of learning, right? When you think about the dynamic nature of the career, but that's really what got me into the business.
Perfect. Malcolm, for you, same thing. How did you wind up where you are?
Well, while attending North Carolina A&T, had to throw that out there. But, I was given an opportunity for a summer internship with an insurance carrier. During that summer, I had the opportunity to learn all lines of business as far as claims, underwriting, and sales. So after the internship was over, that actually evolved into me having a part-time job during my senior year of working with an agent. So I was continuing to build my sales background. I just kept those relationships, and about a week before graduation, sure enough, I was offered an opportunity in claims. So that's where I got my first start as a auto liability adjuster, entry-level position. And I'm an old school auto adjuster where we had to go out and meet with the customers face to face and handle claims virtually over the phone. So it was a different dynamic back then. But the skills that I picked up back then I still use to this day. Organization skills, just being able to build rapport and meet people and have a conversation with people. And just you have like 10 seconds to build that trust factor.
Yeah.
So
that's something that I want to come back to the whole thing about the old school way of going and do claims, and what we have now in this high tech AI kind of environment and how that may begin to affect careers. So the next thing, just a quick anecdote in terms of, Stan is from New Jersey. You was at North Carolina A&T. In terms of your personal life and way of looking at things, how is that translated into your professional world, and how do the two support each other?
For me, I've been blessed to have a wife that's in the industry as well. So she understands the grind. She understands what I go through, and she understands what my goals are. So with my goals, she understands some sacrifices have to be made for me to achieve my goals. I've had roles where I've had to travel a lot in the past. Sometimes I was gone 1, 2, sometimes 3 weeks at a time. So there's some sacrifices that had to be made. But it was a calculated move at the same time.
Yeah.
And even though I was traveling, thanks to technology, I was still able to find some type of work-life balance. Still using FaceTime to check in on soccer games or talk to the kids about how their day went, talk to my wife about how her day went. So it was important, even though I was making those moves and those sacrifices, that we were on the same page, and I was still able to find that balance.
Okay, great. Stan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I agree with Malcolm. I mean, having a supportive family network is helpful. Earlier in my career, I was open to being mobile, right, and relocating. So I'm from New Jersey. I actually live in Maryland right now. And the reason why I'm in Maryland is, I took an opportunity to lead a team that probably wouldn't have been available at the same sort of pace and trajectory if I stayed in the New York, New Jersey marketplace. So, for me at the time, that was a transition that I was willing to make, and obviously it worked with my wife and I. It worked for my wife and I, but I think being mobile is something that maybe looks a little bit different today. But really, the takeaway is, taking risk, right? And I think that was one of the big things that helped me in my personal life that translated to the career side of things, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I would say. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Stan. Because I'm just going to say, it's wonderful to hear you say this, and Malcolm as well. This whole work-life family balance, because in essence, there is no separation between work. I mean, you're one person that gets sliced, if you will, into different aspects of your being. So you have to address them, and hopefully they support each other, which is what it sounds like all of you are saying.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously there are small things that you can do on a day in, day out basis to really position yourself, right, for success in your career, right? And that's, just being a student of the game, right? Being a student of the business in your craft. And that's making sure that you're consuming information that's relevant, that can give you insights, that can translate to whatever you're doing. So that's something that I take, to heart within my personal life, to be able to just sort of, making sure that I'm staying abreast of what's changing, what's going on, and how that might impact the business.
Nice. And so now this is a loaded question. So I'm gonna preface it before I send it to you, and I'll start with you, Stan, since you just had the mic and it feels comfortable in your hand. In terms of Blacks and African Americans in the insurance industry, oftentimes the insurance industry is not that sexy, if you will. It's not that it's viewed that way. That's not the case, but it's viewed that way. And so I would like to hear your input on, one, the need for African Americans and Blacks from the diaspora to be involved in this business, and two, what kind of insight do you think we bring to the table when we step in the space?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question. So the industry needs, right, the best and brightest talent, right? And Black professionals offer that, right? And so I think, we bring unique perspectives to the table, which, is really important to firms in today's environment because, innovation, we hear about innovation all the time, right? But having different perspectives at the table helps accelerate innovation and problem solving, right, for companies, because at the end of the day, that's what most of what we're doing, right, is we're solving problems for customers, for individuals, for businesses, et cetera, right? So I think it's really important to sort of lean in from that perspective. Now, when you think about so what you talked about, right, in terms of it not being attractive or sexy, I think that's just it's really more around education, right? In terms of the number and breadth of paths that are available in insurance, right? When I worked in banking, I didn't know much about insurance, right? It wasn't something I thought about, and I transitioned from that space into insurance, and even focused on financial institutions within insurance, right? So I was still sort of connected to the financial services space, just through a different lens. It was through a risk lens. So that's what I would highlight is that, whatever you might be doing that's outside of the insurance industry, there's usually a home for you within the insurance industry that keeps you connected to whatever that first career might be, right? So I think that's a good way to think about it. There's obviously claims, risk engineering, there's data and analytics, there's technology. Can go on forever in terms of the number of possibilities, but it's a broad industry. I think we just got to talk it up a little bit more.
Right. Excellent. Malcolm?
Well, we live in an age where customers want to see a reflection of them in the products that they buy. Mm-hmm. So whether they have a claim and the adjuster that's reaching out as an African American, they want to see it on the front line. They want to see where decisions are being made as well that are going to produce products that are going to affect them. So there needs to be a reflection of us at every level. Also, as far as this industry, African Americans need to be educated on what's available as well. I think Stan touched on it, because when I first heard of insurance, I thought there was sales and that's it. When people ask me, what do I do for a living today? I say insurance. Like, first question, who do you sell for? They don't understand all the different avenues, the the limitless potential that you can reach in this industry. So I think they need to be educated as well. If we're recruiting out at colleges or wherever we're recruiting at NAAIA, make sure they understand the different avenues that they can take. It's not just sales. You can come from a tech background, engineering, financial, so many different avenues you can take. So just make sure they have that full understanding. But there definitely needs to be a reflection of us in the industry. On the same token, they want to see somebody that's been successful in the industry. So I think those stories need to be shared on a bigger scale as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think about when I first came into the financial services industry, I was also at a bank. I was at J.P. Morgan, and I was on the tech side, and I'm still on the tech side. But as I go through and look at what I've traversed in terms of my career, I'm now with a long-term care insurance provider, a broker, and so when I look at that in terms of how we should begin to or add to the way we add accolades rather to this business for our people, is that it gives you a broad sweep, as you just said, but it also gives us this foothold, if you will, to begin to generate generational wealth through insurance, not just by working there, but by understanding instruments within the industry, whether it's property and casualty or life or annuities or whatever fits the person's need. And I think by having Black and African Americans from the diaspora in the space, it gives us the chance to be able to connect with the clients at a personal level, because maybe we may not have been in a certain situation, but most likely we got a family or a friend that's been there, and we can use that to leverage, which I think is which is a good thing for us to do. So Malcolm, I'll stay with you. If you got a comment, go ahead. You had something.
No, so I agree with that, because I've learned about so many products since I've been working in the industry that will help protect my assets and, like you said, continue to build generational wealth. I didn't know what umbrella policy was. I didn't know different types of life insurance that you could purchase to pass on to your children and to your loved ones. So you're constantly learning.
Yeah, that's key. Now, here's this next question. Given where you are now in your career, and you kind of look back in your mind's eye of the travels, what was the biggest challenge you faced in the beginning, and how has that challenge made you a better practitioner today, if you will? And I'll start with you, Stan. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. When I think about early in my career, one of the things that I struggled with was sort of second guessing decisions, maybe over analyzing situations, and quite frankly, maybe being a little too hard on myself. So, some of that is just the pains of being a type A, right, personality. But when you overlay that with identity, being Black man, it could feel different, right? So, that was something that I leaned on mentors, managers to talk through scenarios and situations, and I got some real genuine feedback about how and where I spend my energy, and so that's something that's always stuck with me that I think about today, because that has real implications, right? Because we live in a business where you need to make, or we live in a world where you need to make decisions, and be decisive and with conviction to move forward, right? And so everything's not going to be perfect. But I think that sense of urgency is really important to just get things done, right? So that was something that I struggled with a little bit earlier in my career, and that sometimes I still have a tendency of overanalyzing things, and you got to move to action, right? So that's one of the things. And if I can add another thing that I wouldn't say that I struggled, but I didn't appreciate as much, is the networking and the building of relationships, right? Sort of thinking that I can just do a great job, have my head down, and just get it done, and sort of, get things done through just sheer willpower. That's just not the world we live in, right? This is a relationship business, and you learn quickly to focus in on key relationships, and to be open to new relationships as well. So that's something that I've learned throughout the years, and think really helps anyone in any business, because again, this is a relationship business.
Definitely. Malcolm, same to you.
Yeah, few things I struggle with early on. First off is being told no. I mean, raise your hand if you like being told no. I feel like I'm a high performer, doing well in my roles. When I applied for that next step, I was rejected. I struggled with that. I took it personally. As I've matured, I understand that it's rare that you get that next role the first time around. It's going to take you 2 or 3 interviews to finally get that answer that you want. So I matured. I had to self-reflect and to understand, okay, now that I've taken the emotion out of it, what can I do next time to continue to prepare myself when this position opens up again? That was a huge struggle of mine. I really didn't utilize mentors at the time. So I was pretty much just trying to figure this out on my own. I came through an era where you just put your head down, you do your job, and wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, are you interested in this role?" It wasn't something that you really voiced. This is what I want to do. Can you help me get there? That was almost forbidden when I started. Another thing I struggled with early on was stereotypes. I came through an era where just me wearing a beard to work. Before I interviewed, hey, you may want to cut that beard off. You may want to shave it down a little bit. That could be that could be a definite no before the interview even starts. And don't dare walk around the office with a tattoo showing. Like, that was forbidden. So I really struggled. Excuse me. I struggled with that. Felt at times like I'm having to conform, not really able to be me. But that climate has changed now, whereas it's more and more accepted now. Where beards in interviews. I mean, tattoo. I mean, you got CEOs with tattoo sleeves now, so there's more accepted now. And I just reached that point where you know what? I have to be me. I have to bring the best me to work to perform at my best. So
Yeah,
that's just something. That's
and
just
I was
something
just going to say, I'm sorry, you reminded me of something, both of you, that my father would always tell me 2 things. He always said relationships are prime. Everything else is because no matter how much you know or what you bring to the table, if you don't have a relationship for someone to tap you on the shoulder and someone to
Yes.
recognize your work and say, let me give him a heads up or level up or a sponsorship, it especially for African Americans, and even to this day, that happens. And the other thing he always said is, I'd rather be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And so that in terms of career advancement, we have to, and it can be a little taxing on us because we already have some other hurdles we have to jump through just because of who we are. But I think that ability to say, whenever I do get the call and they say, I can raise my hand and say, put me in, coach, I'm ready for coach to put me in. And I think that's something that really helps when we're trying to advance in our careers. Now, here's a question that I had challenge with, and I'll ask you in this level, in this, moving up a level, right? Moving from a daily worker, let's say, and that may not be the right term, but moving into a management position where you may have to give up some of your technical prowess and move into more managing people resources as the number resources or things like that. How have you found that, and what kind of strategies would you give to combat that?
Well,
If that makes sense.
What I did when I was an individual contributor, I knew I was a leader even in that role. So what I did was I did whatever possible to put myself in those leadership situations as an individual contributor. So I got the confidence. I built up the confidence to reach out to my leader and say, "Hey, you know what? Leadership is my goal. What can we do? What can I do to put myself in this situation?" So I started backing him up when he's out of the office, vacation, trainings, etc. So I could be a go-to for my peers and start putting myself in that situation where I had to provide coaching and feedback, taking on special projects or additional development opportunities. Before I kind of shied away from that at first, but I realized to get to the next level, that's what I'm going to have to do to build my skill set, continue to network, which I wasn't a strong networker at first, continue to put my name out there, put it out there in the atmosphere.
Nice.
And I found,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Malcolm. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
When we get to that level, it's not about us anymore. It's about our influence. How can we influence others to achieve whatever the strategy may be? So I just continue to just put myself in those situations as much as possible. So when I went into interviews, I was able to talk about, well, when I was in this scenario as a leader, this is what I did. So it gives you additional talking points as well.
Perfect. Stan?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Malcolm shared, particularly around the influencing piece of it, right? When you go from an individual contributor to a manager of people, it's really about influencing. I also think starting sort of orienting yourself to the right mindset, which is really servant leadership, right? How do you support the people on your team, right? And how do you help them be successful? Because ultimately, that's how you get measured, right? As leaders, how successful is your team, right? So, the things that got you to be successful as an individual contributor, right? Being the best at whatever it might be, that's great, and you can still maintain, that sort of level of expertise and hopefully transfer it to others. But the coaching aspect and the ability to see growth in your team is really how you're judged. And it's not about you, right? It's about how the team performs. And so it's just, it's an orientation, it's a mindset to really sort of recalibrate to think about leadership in that way or management in that way.
Yeah, I think about myself when I moved from and as I said earlier, I'm in technology. So when I moved from coding and data analysis and moved into a leadership position, one of my biggest fears was I'm giving up a hard skill. I can take this coding, or I can take this hard data analytics anywhere, right? It's a hot commodity. When I move into management, I got to give up some of those skills and begin to develop and help others who are in that space to get sharp. And so, there was a little bit of hesitancy and a little bit of fear to move into that position because one, I was giving up a hard skill. Two, good managers are not that easy to find, but they're definitely out there who can still understand the breadth of what's going on and be able to motivate and train individuals to move forward. And so that I appreciate what you guys are saying because it becomes a different mindset. It's a code switch, if you will. Might not be the right word for it, but it's definitely a code switch that you have to flip to move into that leadership position because as a technician, you got pressure coming down, let's say. But if you're in the middle, you got pressure coming up from your support staff, and then you got pressure coming down from your management, which makes it interesting sometimes. And so with that being said, what would you say? I mean, we hear now there's recession, there's not recession, and there's all these different things about the market. They're laying off, they're not laying off. So what kind of career advice, if you will, and I'll start with you, Stan, in terms of dealing with downsizing, which you were saying that you took a little stab at when you were in the financials and then moved over to insurance. And how would you advise someone to deal with that kind of environment and still stay upbeat, if you will?
Yeah, no, it's certainly a challenge, right? And one of the things that there are a couple of things I think that are important, right? First is make sure you leverage your network, right? In that when you're in that situation, I'd say it's probably initially easy to sort of look inward, right? And you want to stay connected externally to folks and your network to continue to foster those relationships that might lead to an opportunity for you. I also think that considering uncomfortable move is also something to keep on the like I said earlier in my career. While I didn't get the actual notice, but there was a lot of downsizing happening around me, right? And so it was a very sort of uneasy environment. And so for me, moving from banking to insurance, for me, it was an uncomfortable move because I didn't know anything about insurance. It wasn't anything I ever thought about, right? So that was an uncomfortable move, and and it worked out really well, obviously for me. But I think those are some of the things that are helpful when you're in that sort of that uncertain period, right? Just leveraging that network, staying connected, and keeping uncomfortable moves on the table.
Yeah, Malcolm.
I agree with everything Stan said. I mean, network that's going to come up. I don't know how many times during this call. Your network is important. utilize your network. I mean, I personally know people that have unfortunately been terminated due to their company downsizing. They've reached out. There may be a role at my company they're interested in. I've told them, send me your resume and I'll make sure it gets on the recruiter's desk. So, I mean, however I can help, please let me know. And as a community, that's something we need to work on as well. Is sometimes asking for help is a sign of weakness. And we need to get away from that. You know, it's okay to ask for help. Anyway, I can help, let me know. Lean on your network. Also, we need to support each other. If you know they've been downsized and once they get that interview, you know, how you need help prepping, you need a pep talk before the interview, check in to see how they're doing after the interview. Hey, let me know how it went. You know, just cheer each other on and pull for each other and just be that support system. Because I think collectively, you know, every industry is down right now, but collectively, we can push through this and we can push through.
Yeah, no, you know, we have a saying in our community, each one teach one, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a question here that you guys have already answered, basically, that I was going to ask about how would you deal with someone wanting to switch into the industry, or how you would help someone who's already in the industry. And I think, you know, for the most part, you guys have laid out a nice roadmap, networking, make sure your skills are sharp. Do some homework. You know, if you find a family friend or an associate who's in the industry, and they can tell you and be able to say, hey, what skills do you have? Okay, well, you might want to go into underwriting. You might want to go into actuarial, or you know, to be able to give some solid advice and not just say, oh, you should come into the industry. Well, and you know, as both Malcolm and Stan said in the beginning, which lane am I going to be in? There are many lanes in this industry. And unfortunately, if you will, a lot of the public who are not educated in insurance and financial services industry at that particular level, that's all they see is sales. And if they've had a bad experience with a salesperson coming to the house or dealing with a policy trying to collect, then we have a whole another ball game, which we want to get beyond. So let me ask you guys this. What if you could discuss your development strategy for accumulating your skills, and how important is it to stay in the educational space in terms of this industry and what it allows you to do? And whoever wants to go first, I'll just leave the lane open.
Yeah, I think, you know, like the term learning agility, right? That's a term that we hear often, and it's about, you know, the ability to continuously commit yourself to learning, right? Because everything is changing so fast, right, around us, and so the ability to learn new skills and invest in learning is important. You know, for me, I invested early in things like CPCU, which is, you know, obviously structured sort of training, but there's a lot of on the job training things that are available to us, right? It could be something as simple as, you know, taking the opportunity to you know, have a public speaking sort of engagement, right? Raising your hand for something like that, right? Working on communication. There's projects, right, that always are being put forth that folks can sort of contribute to and lean into, right? So I think just, you know, focusing and committing yourself to continuous learning is something that is really important. And again, it's particularly just given how fast things are changing, right? So when you think about AI tech, and I know that's a hot topic, right? What will those roles look like, and what skills do you need to be able to sort of play in that space? And how are you sort of thinking about preparing for those things, right? Those are some of the things that, you know, I certainly think about, and how does, you know, the decision tree sort of play out? But I think focusing on continuous learning, and it comes in different forms, right? Publications, you know, formal training, on the job training. It doesn't always have to be structured, right? When we think about learning.
Malcolm.
Yeah, continuous learning. I mean, that's a must. Your company, if they give you the opportunity to pay for certifications, designations, then that's a must. Also, just be a change champion. Like, change is inevitable in this industry. So whenever change happens, don't fight it. You know, take a deep dive into it. It's like, okay, this is a new software, it's a new platform. Let me see what I can learn about it, be a change champion, and become a subject matter expert. Because that's only going to help you become more marketable as well. You surfing LinkedIn, you see something about a new technology that's coming out. Take a few minutes and read about that technology. Maybe it's something you can implement at your company. And personally, the people I know that have really climbed the ladder quickly, they came with those continuous improvement ideas that are able to make a huge impact at their company. So always be open to change, always be open to new ideas, and be innovative yourself.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that, and it, I always knew it, but it came to me in a kind of a funny way. My son was in school and he needed a speech class, and the class was full, and he needed it to graduate. Of course, they saved those to the end, and so he went to the advisor, and the advisor said, "Well, why don't you go take this acting class? You'll get everything in that acting class in terms of presentation, voice, intonation, yada yada yada." In that class. And I'm saying that to say that no matter whether you're on the tech side or the sales side or the management side, to be able to develop presentation skills and to be able to read the audience, if you will, is key in this business. Right. And that's something that will serve you. So, if you can go speak to the Boy Scouts, go speak to the Boy Scout. If you can have to give a committee report in church, then go give a committee report in church, where you can begin to develop that skill, because it's a very needed skill everywhere, but definitely I think in our business, to be able to be heartfelt when you're giving information to either a potential client, or someone who's supporting you or who you're supporting. So I think that's key. And you had something, Stan?
No, I'm just going to say I couldn't agree more with you, particularly when you think about how technology is going to integrate itself in our business. Right, the one thing that you're still going to need people to be able to convey messages to other people and build business cases and be able to communicate those in an effective way. Right, and so whether that's, to your point, client presentations, colleagues, we're always, I know there's a stigma around selling, but you're always selling something, right, to someone, right? And so don't be shy, right? We're always selling at some point, and being able to connect those dots, like you just mentioned, is critical to that process.
Because at the end of the day, if you're selling, if you're selling nothing else, you're selling yourself, right?
Right.
To that person, that client, that boss, or whatever. Now, Stan, you mentioned heading into the future with the AI and the technology and big data and all of that. I mean, we could spend a whole conversation just on that. But as if you had a crystal ball, and same thing for you, Malcolm, if you had a crystal ball that would give you a glimpse into the future, how do you say AI will change what you do today?
That for me first, Elzia, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. No, thanks. Yeah, I think we're starting to see some of that already in terms of how it's impacting. So I work in the underwriting space, right? So I'm in the underwriting function of insurance, and so obviously, a lot of decision making gets done in the underwriting function. There's a lot of information that's consumed, right, in the underwriting process, and so there's opportunities to leverage AI technologies to be able to get information faster, organized in a way that can help you make decisions quicker, right? So it's not replacing people, but it's helping people make better, smarter decisions faster, right? And so that's really how we'll probably see AI play out for us over the next, 3 to 5 years, because there's a lot of new things that are coming online that will help us be able to move faster, make smarter decisions, and be a little bit more nimble and more precise too with how we think about risk.
Malcolm?
Yeah, coming from a claims perspective, I mean, I see where they're writing policies, underwriting policies, and handling claims now. So, I mean, I think the industry is going to become more tech driven. You're going to see more programmers, coders. So, people step up your technology game. Get those certifications. And then, so like Stan said, so much information is available in a high abundance. I think you're going to see more analysts that are going to be needed as well. Like, okay, we have the information. Now it needs to be analyzed, and we need to come up with strategy based on this information.
If I can add something there too, just this is not only impacting the insurance industry, right? It's impacting a lot of other industries, right? So when you think about cyber risk and cyber exposures, those are going to grow along, right, this sort of evolution. So there's a lot of opportunity in the cyber arena within insurance that is, an area that you can expect to see more opportunities, more growth, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's key. I'm glad you brought it because I work in that space in terms of dealing with PII and PHI in terms of all this personal information we grab in our industry for our clients, and we have to be very astute about protecting that data, knowing what's going on with it, not holding it longer than we need it, and that story just goes on because as technology gets faster and faster and more sophisticated in a very short period of time, we will have to stay on our toes, if you will, to make things happen. Now, here's a question. In terms of what time we got here? Okay, I got to be conscious of my time. In terms of mentorships, I guess so much I could ask here, but I'll ask this one because we're looking for people, moving up in their career. In terms of mentorships or sponsorships, and mentor is someone who gives you skills, or sponsor is someone who puts you in a position to do something. So they're not. Sometimes people confuse them, but they're two different things. So in terms of mentoring and sponsoring someone to move forward, or look for someone that can help them in either one of those spaces, what would you say, Malcolm?
I would say first look within your company to see if they have a mentorship program. That's something that I utilize. I wish I would have utilized mentors much sooner. Really didn't start taking advantage of it until about 5-6 years ago. So having a mentor is huge. Give you a fresh outlook, give you the information you need to get to whatever your goals are. And when we talk about mentorship, it's important that we pay it forward to the next wave as well. So you can have a mentor, but also be available to be a mentor for someone else. And as far as sponsorship is huge. Like you said, they're in rooms that you're not in. So it's important that you voice what your goals are. You have to be a high performer. You can't be on performance plan and then saying what your goals are to get to the next level. So you have to show and prove at what you're doing now. But it's okay to ask your sponsor, what can I do to get to the next level? What can I do to sit in your seat one day? And ask, what's the perception of me? I know what my personal brand is, but what's thought of me in those discussions, in those rooms that I'm not in? And then at the same time, expecting them to hold you accountable. If it's something you need to work on, somewhere you need to improve, you need to take that feedback, and it's honest, genuine feedback, and that is something you need to work on. Great. Now you have the information you need to help you get to that next level.
Dan?
Yeah, I think Malcolm hit on all the key things that I would think about when trying to seek a mentor. Certainly take advantage of whatever formal programs your company might have, but don't confine it just to that too, right? You definitely want to build relationships and see if there are opportunities to have informal mentors as well. And you don't need one; you can have multiple mentors, right? So that's okay. And I would say that make sure that you're continuously investing in your development, in your learning. Make sure you're sort of measuring that improvement, right? As you're receiving that feedback and implementing it, you can take a look back and say, all right, am I getting better in that particular area or not? But that's all I had to add. But I think
I've reached out through NAAIA and received mentors outside of my company as well. So utilize your resources.
Yeah.
Great. And I have one last question that I wanted to ask, and if this is your elevator speech answer to this one, in that there are not a large number of African Americans from the diaspora in the space in leadership positions, and so being sometime maybe the only one there, and having to do what you do. What would you say is the key thing to remember as you begin to traverse that ladder and move into that space? Stan?
Yeah, I would say be authentic. That's the key thing to remember. I think when you start to get in those spaces, you can sometimes maybe lose perspective, right? And so I think being authentic is really important, and recognizing that what you're there for a reason, right? And so what you're bringing to the table is valued and appreciated. So that would be my key point.
Okay, Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in to whom much is given, much is required. So if you're in that space, you're in that space for a reason. Like Stan said, be authentic, be your true self. At the same time, understand the audience, and always understand somebody's watching you. And it's a must. The trials and tribulations that you went to get there, we have to reach back and make it easier for the next person. We have to be transparent and talk about the mistakes that we made. So this is behind door A. Don't go there. Go try door B or door C. This is what went wrong for me. Don't do that. And what took me 5 years to obtain, maybe I can help you get there in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and I said that was the last one, but I you guys are giving such good advice. I want to ask this one other question in terms of your personal brand, right? In terms of you being able to put a stamp on something. What would you say is key there? Malcolm, I'll start with you.
Well, I have my personal brand right here on my laptop. I read it multiple times a day. I put it out in the atmosphere. I am accountable, and I am empowering. I'm putting that out in the atmosphere, and I talk about that in my meetings with my sponsors and my mentors. So I want to control the narrative as much as possible. And so your personal brand, that's your brand. That's how you're known. So control it as much as you can.
Stan?
Yeah, I think for me, it's sort of responsiveness and deep technical knowledge is what I've sort of leaned on in my career. All the other things are important as well, but those are the two things that when I think about my personal brand that I've really sort of stayed really invested in. And so I'd also add that you can only control the controllables, right? So focus on the things that you can control and less so on the things that you cannot control, because again, that's about where you spend your time and energy.
Well, guys, we needed more time. We should have lobbied for more time, because we're getting close to that time, and we have a lot of questions. And in the chat, in the Q&A, and I don't know if anyone wants to ask a question live or if they have that ability, but I want to thank you guys, and I want to thank NAAIA for this opportunity to have this kind of barbershop kind of conversation where we can just be free and talk about life and career and advancement and obstacles that we face along the journey. And so I want to thank you guys immensely, and again thank NAAIA. And so with that, we can go into some Q&A. I don't know if there's ability to ask something live, or do I just kind of pick and choose between the questions in the Q&A? Let's see. So there's a question here that says, by anonymous attender, how to work through the challenges of a lack of African-American clients and limited opportunities. And either one of you I'll just throw them out, and since it'll be kind of rapid fire.
Okay. How to work through, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah. How to work through the challenges of a lack of African-American clients, or, pulling more African-American clients in, and the limited opportunity, if that's the space, given the background in that space with insurance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a longer term sort of issue, right? In terms of how do you create, if it's a commercial space, more Black owned businesses, for example, that could be the angle that this person is asking the question from. But to me, that's around how you network, where you network, the different products and services that you bring that might appeal to one group over another a little bit more. So keeping all those things in perspective. is, I think, something to think about, right? Is it a one size fits all type of approach, or is there something more customized that you can bring to a particular demographic that can differentiate you from a business development perspective?
Okay. We have a question from Michelle Bryant that says, what resources would you recommend to young professionals to learn more about the different insurance paths and the availability of them? And either you, Malcolm or Stan, or both jump in.
First, you can start with your, if you want to start with your company, just ask open-ended questions. What are the different career paths that are available? Reach out to leadership in different lines of business, or like I said, sales, underwriting. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask, how did you get to this point? We all were entry level at one point somewhere. So be willing and open to learn more about their journey and how they got to where to the position where they are now. And outside of your company, utilize groups like NAAIA. Don't be afraid. I found that everybody I reached out to through NAAIA, they're willing to share the information. So utilize those resources as well.
Yeah, I agree with what Malcolm said. You leverage the NAAIA network for sure, your personal network. When you're spending time focusing on different publications and things of that nature, I think you'll start to pick up and get a perspective on what other industries or areas that are not industries, but subsegments within the insurance industry that are available. So that's another way to think about other paths.
Yeah. So here's one from Desiree that says, for someone looking to expand into the insurance tech innovative space, what advice would you give them? And I would say for that, if you don't have a tech background, take a few courses. Try to take a programming language or take a web building, just to get you familiar with the language. Because it's a different language on that side. And although you may not actually do that, but you want to be in a space to where you are knowledgeable of what needs to be done and how that can augment or help you, in what your pursuits are. Malcolm and Stan, you got any points on that you want to add?
I was going to say, start getting those certifications so you can show that you have the capacity to learn, you have an understanding. And then when you're in interviews with these companies, don't be afraid to ask. First you want to check and make sure it's the right fit for you, but ask, are you willing to continue to invest in me in this space to continue to grow? What's available?
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. Nothing to add there.
Yeah. So here's a question, again, by anonymous attendee. It says, and I'm going to summarize it, that they've been in the industry a little under 1 year, and they're looking to relocate to a different place and company. What kind of advice would you give them as they look for this new company or a city? And I know that's a kind of broad, but basically I would put that, what is a good way to start seeking out opportunities? Like Stan, you moved from Jersey down to Baltimore, and so you might be able to give a little insight on that.
Yeah, I'd first take a step back, think about, are you running away from something, or are you running to something, right? So think about that first, right? So assuming that you want to run to something and have an idea of what that is, you look for companies that align with whatever your vision is, right? And whatever you're targeting. You also want to consider, the geography, right? Where it is, right? And what that means for you long term. But I think being mobile definitely gives you greater opportunities to do more, right? So take advantage of that. And whoever asked that question, I think, that's an area that isn't probably as prevalent today in terms of being mobile. But if you are, you've sort of set yourself apart already.
Thank you for watching this flashback episode of NAAIA. We appreciate your time and hope you found the insights valuable. Stay tuned for more enriching content. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the NAAIA community.